Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Wednesday everybody. With international eyes on Shanghai, we remember that other parts of the country, of course, are facing outbreaks as well, and thus implementing the capital's zero-COVID policy. As such, we need to keep an eye on several major economic centers. Let's begin with the capital itself. According to the Beijing Center for Disease Prevention and Control, the capital city has reported 4 clusters involving a market, a subway renovation project, a bus station, and a branch of a logistics company. The clusters have seen hundreds of cases over the last several days. Starting yesterday, more restrictions were introduced for public transportation across the city. Passengers are required to show their green health codes before boarding buses and entering subway stations around and near the lockdown and controlled zones. 4 districts, including the large and wealthy Chaoyang, have work-from-home orders. Though Beijing is not in a Shanghai-style lockdown at present, the economic pain has nonetheless been substantial. According to the official data for April published this week, retail sales in the city of nearly 22 million people, and retail sales, of course, is a good proxy for consumption, plunged 16.0% in April year-on-year, worse than the national 11.1% contraction, and perhaps even worse than the official data shows. Meanwhile, in the northern port city of Tianjin, an hour from the capital, a new outbreak has emerged as well. The city officially recognized 28 infections during a mass testing drive. Tianjin is a relatively wealthy city of nearly 14 million people. It is also an important industrial center, hosting the operations of the likes of Toyota and Volkswagen. Moving to the southwest of the country, a small county in Sichuan, a province of modest wealth but very large population, is on the second day of mass nucleic acid testing after a small outbreak was discovered. There is concern that the poorly resourced county may have difficulty implementing the control policies required by the central government, risking spread to the provincial capital, Chengdu, or the megacity of Chongqing, just 90 kilometers away. And of course, there are outbreaks and lockdowns of varying sizes and degrees in dozens of other cities across the country. Indeed, several border towns have been in a state of lockdown for months now. And one last thing, a 27-year-old man who tested positive for COVID and quarantined after his arrival in the southern province of Guangdong was discovered to have a new subvariant of Omicron, which is considered even more infectious, according to the China CDC in a statement yesterday. Compared to other Omicron variants, BA 2.12.1 has been detected in at least 20 countries, and it has showed stronger immune escape. Several studies have shown that its transmissibility is about 23% to 27% faster than the BA.2 Omicron subvariant, which is currently spreading through China. Last week, of course, was the quote, end quote, controversy or controversy, as our North American friends would say. With that in mind, and as a bit of fun, I launched China Update's first clothing collection, the quote, China Update end quote collection. Anyone who's interested, check out the link in the description below. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and support the channel, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you everybody for the ongoing support. Okay, next up, Yang Jiechi, China's most senior diplomat and foreign affairs official, penned a piece in Monday's People's Daily on studying and implementing Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy. This gives us the most recent and authoritative look at PRC diplomatic policy and ideology, as well as positions on current foreign policy issues, which is always important to follow to understand how to analyze PRC diplomatic actions around the world. Let's examine some key themes in the piece called Studying and Implementing Xi Jinping Thought on Diplomacy in a Deep-Going Way and Opening Up New Horizons in China's External Work. Quote, certain countries harboring the strategic goal of containing China have chosen to ignore China's remarkable achievements and outstanding contribution to international peace and development. Instead, they have proceeded from their Cold War mentality and ideological bias, gone out of their way to spread disinformation in order to smear and attack China, shown great interest in putting together various gatherings to embolden themselves and seek selfish gains and create bloc confrontation by ganging up in small circles, all all in an attempt to sabotage security and stability in China's periphery and undermine China's core and major interests. Their schemes will never succeed." End quote. Yang then identifies 5 so-called strategic conditions, which he argues are China's killer apps. Using his words, these are 1. The strong leadership of the CPC, 2. The significant institutional strengths of socialism with Chinese characteristics, 3. The solid foundation laid by China's sustained and fast development, 4. The long-term and enduring social stability the country has enjoyed, and 5. A powerful drive that fills us with confidence and strength. He continues, quote, "Any conspiracy aimed at delaying or obstructing China's development and growth is doomed to fail. The goal of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese race, also translated as Chinese nation, will definitely be realized. We will firmly safeguard the dignity of the country as well as the security of our system and ideology, and ensure China's overall political and social stability. We will continue to move forward the China-Russia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership of Coordination for a new era. We will actively take part in and lead the reform and development of the global governance system and champion and practice true multilateralism. We will stay committed to building a community with a shared future for mankind and to fostering a new type of international relations." End quote. Now, speaking of diplomacy and foreign affairs, Japanese media is reporting this week that Japanese and US government officials have begun coordinating on the wording of a joint statement to be released during a summit meeting this coming Monday in Tokyo, and the statement will clearly state a policy of cooperation to deter and respond to China's activities in the Indo-Pacific region, according to Japanese media. US President Joe Biden will travel to both South Korea and Japan from the 20th through to the 24th. It's no secret, of course, that China will be top of the agenda. Quote, "The previous joint statement published last year and delivered by the then Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and Biden spoke to the importance of peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait for the first time in almost half a century. It also included the phrase, the importance of deterrence in the region. This time they will strengthen the wording to include the statement that they will deter China's actions that undermine stability in the region, and if necessary, will cooperate to respond. The statement will also emphasize that they will not allow the status quo to be changed by force, and it will maintain the previous wording regarding the Taiwan Strait." End quote. Unsurprisingly, in the mainland, state media was not too happy about the upcoming summit and these reports about the joint statement. One fairly representative article published by state-run Global Times today expressed that the Asia visit was an important part of the Biden administration's efforts in pushing forward its Indo-Pacific strategy across the Asia-Pacific region to attempt to close in on China militarily, politically, and economically, but it would be a fruitless effort, to use the words of the article. It went on to express that Biden's Asia visit is not peaceful, but provocative. Quote, "Eyeing pushing forward its encroachment of China through cobbling together an economic clique of IPEF after building the security and political cliques of Australia, UK, US trilateral security partnership and the US, Japan, Australia, India Quad dialogue." End quote. We will be following Biden's trip to South Korea and Japan as it relates to China in the coming days. Last up, the Chinese economy. Bloomberg's Hong Kong team reports yesterday that China's main bond trading platform for foreign investors has quietly stopped providing data on their transactions, a move that may heighten concerns about transparency in the nation's $20 trillion debt market after record outflows. Quote, "Daily trades by overseas investors were last provided for May 11th by the China Foreign Exchange Trade System, according to people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified, discussing private information. The data showed sizable net foreign outflows that day, with some selling also seen for most days in April," the people said. End quote. The same sources expressed that transactions by domestic investors on the platform are still getting published, though. Aside from these figures, investors are also awaiting the delayed release of the April report on bond trading by clearinghouse China Bond. Bloomberg analysts write that the information, which is typically published by around the 10th of every month, is a summary of custodial bonds and includes the balance of domestic debt held by overseas institutions. On this story in particular, one commentator expressed today, quote, "It could be a glitch, but given that recent data has shown outflows of foreign capital, the smart money will likely assume something else is going on. Data showing foreign outflows is definitely not positive energy, though if the authorities did this intentionally, they are breathtakingly misguided if they think this move would do anything but erode confidence even more." End quote. Meanwhile, in recent days, the Vice Minister of Finance of the PRC spoke at a press conference on China's fiscal situation, which has not been good since the lockdown started. In April, Shenzhen's fiscal revenue declined by 44% to $3.8 billion year on year. Of course, this is in the Chinese currency yuan. Eastern China's Nanjing saw a nearly 55% drop in fiscal revenue to $1.4 billion. In the southwestern city of Chongqing, we saw also a 35% drop. Nationally, in April, government income from taxes and fees was down an incredible 41% year on year. The Vice Minister expressed that the slump in fiscal revenue was due primarily to tax breaks and refunds designed to maintain economic activity through the lockdowns. The tax refunds for the whole country amounted to about 800 billion yuan, or $118.6 billion in April, equaling 37.5% of the total fiscal revenue. Of course, as we have seen, these policies have had little to no effect in helping the economy. The Vice Minister said that VAT credit refunds are expected to reach 1.5 trillion yuan, and the tax breaks and fee cuts, as well as tax deferrals, should rise to over 1 trillion yuan. Of course, slowing economic activity and the property downturn caused by the evergrande housing crisis is also hurting government income. Across the country, income from deed taxes, which are paid when a property is bought or sold, fell 27.4%, and the income from land sales tumbled nearly 30% in the first 4 months of 2022 compared to a year earlier. This will all continue to put a huge fiscal pressure on the government through 2022 and likely well into 2023 as well.